What's going on YouTube? Derberdoid Wildor here. So I just got back from Mart, which is the county's local steel supplier. Just got some square tube here. Gonna be making some handrails that are gonna be installed out in Garner. It's a really simple setup. It's just a single side of a staircase and then up and around the overlook spot where there's a ledge. So let's get to it. So this is the rough plan. I drawed it up in paint on the computer. I'm a terrible person like that. I really need to get a good CAD program, but got all my stuff right here. I got my basic code right here. So it's my basic code right there. These are all the parts. These are the two places. DS stands for Dillon Supply. That's how much these parts would have cost from Dillon Supply. They're a really big chain that has stores all over the place. And Mart is the local place that has steel. So as you can see right here, all of this right here, I went with Mart because they were the cheapest. There's my labor for these handrails, and there's my trip charge for the installation. If we go over here, this sheet kind of contains everything. As you can see right here, here's the plan. I used a angle finder to find the angle. I laid down a piece of wood on the staircase. So how the staircase works is right here, there's actually a ledge. So there'll be a guard all the way up to the ledge, and then it'll be just a rail that continues to a single post. Then it comes out to the edge, it loops around, comes back to the edge, and across like so. Each post will be 37 inches tall, and the actual rail itself will be shorter. So it'll still be within code. Code is 34 to 38 inches high. I like to shoot somewhere on the high side, but closer to the middle. I like to shoot 37 inches is what I like to shoot for. So yeah, I just have code copied right up here and no gap larger than 4 inches. So I'll put my pickets at every 3 inches, and that's what I planned out for. What I'm using, this is how I build my square handrails unless I am specifically told otherwise through whomever. I use 1.5 by 1.5 1/8 inch, and since in this particular instance it was actually cheaper for me to use 3/4 by 16 gauge square tube than it was for me to get the picket stock. It's a strange thing, it varies, but this will do the same. This it's just their pickets. It's not going to change it. Most of the time I like to use square stock, but you know, this will work just fine too. It's not gonna affect anything. In fact, it might actually, since it's in a very new house in a very nice neighborhood, everybody's going with those aluminum builds that have the nice more round edges on them instead of the sharp corners that the square stock has. So this might actually look a little bit better. So now the first section we're gonna start working on is this section right here. Not this section, this section. The section is 45 inches long. These plans are, you know, they're Durba plans. They're not the best, but it's all simple. I got my cuts for it done up right here. So I write down all my cuts, 2 at 42 and 2 at 37. Now, for taking your cuts, I highly recommend a combo square. Not combo square, but speed square. I really like the Silver Streak markers. And a Milwaukee tape measure. You may want a 25-foot one, but I like the Milwaukee Auto Lock. It is fantastic tape measure. I got this one real cheap. I should have got the 25-foot one, but for what we're doing, I'm not going to need anything longer. So first thing first, we're going to grab our extension cord because we kind of need that. Now this whole area, as you can see, that wall and this wall right here will soon be filled in with crush and run, and the shop will be expanded all the way out to that wall right there. So eventually I'll clear this whole area out. Right now it's just a total complete disaster zone, and I just got to live with it until I get that crush and run done. Yeah, plugged in. There we go. Alright, first thing we're going to do, move this over into our cutting area, and we're going to grab our speed square. I'm going to put the GoPro over here so we can get some GoPro footage. Our poor man's GoPro. I'm going to take speed square. Okay. Gonna set it up on here. It's hard to do one-handed, but there we go. Set it up right there against the back. I'm gonna press it against the back. I'm gonna push this down. We're gonna see if we're square or not. Gonna lift the guard up. Ah, there we go. Come on, guard, get up. Lift the guard up. Let's see here. We square. We are square. I always double check because I never know if I've adjusted it or tweaked it or anything like that. But we're definitely square, or square enough to where this won't be an issue. And I push it right there, it seems to be pretty solid. You know, you don't want to put too much, because you're dealing with a standard chop saw like this, you can wiggle it because the blade actually bends. See the blade bend? So you just want to up tight just like that, not pressing. Good, we're square. Now we double check to make sure we're square. I do sometimes I use this to square it off. This is what's left of a cheap combo square. And I keep it around here because if I don't need precise angles or anything too precise, it works for getting a 90 and a 45 real quick on a chop saw for changing between the two. I don't have to go hunt that down. This can just stay out in the weather. It doesn't affect anything. So something that might help is the cut sheet. Might need a cut sheet. So I'm going to go grab that real quick. It's, you know, kind of important. There we go. It's got something sticky on it, stuck to the flatbed. Might put their chewing gum on the flatbed or some shit like that. But alright. So we need 2 at 42. So I'll drag this out. That's upside down. That's all good. To 42 here. Now. Yep. Yep. It's throwing me off here. Alright. There you go. Make a mark. Well, I like this auto lock. Take our square. Whoops. It's not totally necessary to square it off like this. Some people like to have a nice, precise cut line. Me, I can set it up right on that mark I put there, and I know exactly what I'm on. So let me just, it bumped a little bit. No! So it's very hard to do this one-handed and tape at the same time. There, look at that. There we go. Yeah, like I could line this saw up on there just from experience, but you know, you don't have to. Now if you're trying to be very precise, I cut to the outside of the line, not dead on the line, because that'll be a 1/16 of an inch off, but always cut to the outside of the line. And there you go, guys. It really don't get much better than that. Now, I'm going to show you guys how to do this very easily again. Now, first thing we're going to do, we're going to come over here, make sure we're butted up, which we are. Just run my finger over that, I can tell we're butted up. So, now what we're going to do to repeat this cut, so we can have two that are exactly the same, we're going to slide this back until the blade of the chop saw is smooth. A little bit of a gap, but I can't, it's barely touching. A little bit of a gap, I'll fix it off camera because I gotta have both hands free to do this. But basically, you line up that end and butt this in gently against the saw. Not too much, because remember, this is an abrasive saw. It does bend a little bit. Now you will replicate this exactly, I guarantee, to a 64th every single time. And never, I'm going to tell y'all, if you have to make a bunch of these, I only have to cut 2. Well, if you're making a bunch of these, always use 1 as your starter or your base that you repeat off of, because really small changes, like if it starts making its way 64th, 64th, 64th out, and you always pick the one you cut the most recent to line up for the next cut, you're gonna constantly screw up. Always use 1 piece as your template, and only that piece is a template, so there's less of a chance of having a progressive issue as you go along. Now we can look at these 2 pieces cut right here. Look at that. Beautiful. We go over here. Very, very little, hardly noticeable. Basically, when I knock the burrs off and set these up, you'll never know. Look at that right there. That's the difference. Maybe a 64th at the most. And some of that is too, if you look at the original cut, the one painted red, that factory cut really ain't that precise. See how it's kind of off a little bit? That factory cut's a little off. So yeah, that's about as accurate as you're gonna get on a chop saw. I'm sure somebody has gotten more accurate with a chop saw than that, but yeah, that's about as accurate as I'm gonna get. So back to our master plan here. So you might be wondering, why did I cut 2 pieces at 42 instead of 2 at 45 if it says it's 45 right here? Well, remember, our posts are 1.5 inches each long. So it's 1.5 by 1.5 inches. So I have to subtract 3 from this number. So the outside edge of each post is 45 inches. All right. And the post is going to be 1 inch taller than the actual rail. So it'll have that nice look to it with the taller post and everything. So these rails, so it's 37 inches. The actual rail will sit at 36 inches. And you know, that's perfectly within code. Remember, it's 34 to 38 inches is your allowance. So it's perfectly within code, and it'll have a nice spot of rest. I even pulled these pieces right here, sat it down on the ground. That's a nice height. It's comfortable. I can comfortably rest my hand, without cutting myself, comfortably rest my hand right there. So that's a good height, and just below it will be just fine too. Alright guys, here it is. This is the outer frame. Here's the bottom, 2 inches on the bottom right here, 1 inch on the top of over, just to keep that look. You know, 2 inches right there. It'll be a base plate here. Now the next thing to do is measure for our pickets. So we're gonna have to stack some pickets in here. It's gonna be the next thing. I'll try to get that done before the sun goes down here. It's starting to get kind of late. So that's gonna be the next thing, is cut up a bunch of pickets, get the pickets installed, and go from there.